Hi, I'm your State Representative Annette Glenn. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Hometown Heroes. Each episode of Hometown Heroes will feature community leaders, local nonprofits, and others who make a significant positive impact in the 98th District. The place we call home has so much to be proud of. I hope you enjoy learning from our hometown heroes. As always, if you ever have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to contact my office. Enjoy the show.
Hello, I'm John Perry, and I'm joined by Representative Annette Glenn for Representative Annette Glenn's Hometown Heroes. Representative, nice to see you.
John, it is great to be here. We're excited to kick off Hometown Heroes and very excited to have Greg Dorian from West Midland Family Center here with us. You are our first guest.
Oh, I am honored then. Thank you very much for asking me to come.
Excited to have you here.
And Greg, I guess that begs the question, what is the West Midland Family Center?
Oh, West Midland Family Center is 2 tons of fun. I'd encourage anybody to come on out. We're a 501c3 not-for-profit, open to anybody. We're located exactly 14 miles west of downtown Midland, Main Street, on M20 in a lovely Greendale Township in the county of Midland.
And Greg, you were there since 1987?
Yeah, I was fortunate to, there was a time where they wanted to expand from the old building and get a new facility, and they needed some help. And I had been through a recreation program at Central Michigan, got a degree in Parks and Recreation, and they were thinking that the community center would be certainly recreation based. And after being there several weeks and looking around at the community, it was obvious to me that recreation is great in that everybody needs it, but the community needed an awful lot more too. And by doing other things that are more valuable to people that will help fund things, we may be able to get a new facility up and going. And that's just what happened. In 1989, we tore down the old facility and built a new one, and we've expanded it a couple times since. And recreation is still one of the main things that we do because it is a community center for everybody. But we also do a lot of social service and a lot of education type work too.
So I know when I came to visit, I was really impressed with one of the programs you shared with me of how you mentored first-time kids going to college. Would you share a little bit about that program?
Certainly. It falls into, again, the same kind of thing of it's education, recreation, and social service. This particular program that you're asking about is called the Dow College Opportunity Program. And the Dow Chemical Company helped us get it started by specifically donating things or selling their used surplus things, their used cars, that sort of thing. And they allowed us to take that money and put it in an endowment fund. And we've been funding the program ever since. And the program itself is, most scholarship programs give a low-income child a check to go off to college. And then most low-income children aren't ready to be successful once they go to college, and they leave after the first 6 weeks. We break the cycle of poverty with that program specifically by, rather than giving the child a scholarship after they've been through high school, we work with them 4 years that they're in high school so that they'll be successful and feel like they really do belong in college. So there is a mentor that works with those kids for the 4 years that they're there, and then also works with them all that summer that they're out of high school and up to the next 4 or 5 years while they're in college too. So with this particular program, the graduation rate, if you graduate the high school portion of our program, there's an 83% chance that you then graduate with a degree from some university or college. And that's a lot higher than any class of people. It doesn't matter if you're talking about upper income kids, middle class people. Nobody graduates at an 83% rate. But these were kids that really have they're really serious about wanting to change their family circumstances. And a lot of them, they're going to be most of them are first generation college students, and they're going to be the first generation college graduates.
It's an exciting program. There were so many great things when I visited out there. I noticed with the new renovation, you also added a bowling alley.
Yes, well, again, one of the major things is recreation. And as we looked at we were trying to decide, we did an expansion, and most of it was dedicated to preschool classrooms that got added. But we want to do some recreation things too, and in trying to decide which thing that would be, we settled on bowling because you don't have to be an athlete to be a bowler. You know, you don't have to be a bowler to be a bowler. You can be a young child or a senior citizen. You can be able-bodied or disabled. You can be an athlete or non-athletic. You can be handicapped. You can be a family member. You can bowl alone. So when we looked at it, it's like the bowling alley literally is a way in which just about anybody could come in and say, oh, I'd like to try it, or I'd like to do it, or do it regularly. And we have some of all of that going on. Now, we've had a swimming pool for 20 years, and there are still people that have been in that building many times and still don't know that we have a swimming pool. So it is hard to get the word out, but we are getting it out, and the bowling alley is going to be there for a long time. It costs us very little to run because most of the money is tied up in capital costs. We asked the major foundations in Midland if they wanted to build us a 2-lane bowling alley, and they said, yeah, they thought that was a good idea. So we built it, and now we run it.
So what, if you had to say overreaching, what is the goal? What's the major purpose of West Midland Family Center?
Yeah, definitely what we're about is trying to break the generational cycle of poverty. And that is a long-term thing. You can't take a 6-week class and be done with it. It's generational, it's learned. We learn so much from our parents. Even when our parents are trying to do the right thing, it's still hard to learn from your parents. And if your parents aren't trying to do the right thing, it's even harder to learn from them. So breaking the generational cycle of poverty is really the #1 thing. And of course, we've got lots of families that aren't in poverty, but it just means being better prepared to be productive citizens. I mean, that's really the bottom line. And we know we're being successful in our mission of breaking that generational cycle, because as we look at the history, looking at the census data, you'll remember I said we're in Greendale Township for one. So if you look at a township, which is a 6 by 6 mile square, the child poverty rate in 1990, which was when we built the brand new building in 1989, we'd already been in business a long time, but the child poverty rate was 32% for children in that community. And it's like, you know, that's really high. If it's greater than 20%, it's considered a high poverty area by the Census Bureau. So at 32%, it was like, yeah, there's a lot of work here to be done.
It's a third, yeah.
It's a third of the kids. You line up 3 kids, you point, one was in poverty. The other 2 were probably pretty low income anyhow, but they weren't in poverty. They were the next level up. So 10 years later, the census of 2000 comes out, and child poverty rates in Greendale Township dropped to 17.9%.
Wow.
Which from 32 is a lot.
That's dramatic.
Now, we weren't sure how much of a role we played in that, because also the decade of the 90s was a decade of expansion, and a rising tide lifts all boats. So we really weren't sure, but we thought, but we're probably on to something, so we kept doing it. Besides, we like our jobs. But then the 2010 census came out, and you'll recall late 2000 and aughts, 2008, 2009, we were in the greatest recession since the Great Depression. Child poverty rates went up absolutely everywhere in this country. I don't care what county you pick, you start looking at the township levels, they went up everywhere. The city of Midland, it went up from 9% the child poverty rate from 2000 to over 15% for the child poverty rate. And the city of Midland's considered wealthy, or at least most of us consider it wealthy. But the child poverty rate in Greendale Township actually fell another 0.5%. And when it didn't go up and it actually went down, we said, you know what, we really are onto something here.
We're making a difference.
And what it is our parents were able to weather that storm of that recession, in part because they were in the lower income service community type jobs. Those did fine. Those weren't the people being downsized during the recessions. A lot of times it was the more professional folks that were having a hard time with it, and business owners and that sort of thing. Now, they're in those low-income service jobs because the parents themselves probably didn't have a lot of education, and it has a lot to do with a lot of the choices they made. But it has changed the families because there is a strong work ethic. These folks are out working. The kids are seeing that. They're not in poverty anywhere near the rate that they are. The kids are benefiting from it, and we are anxiously looking forward to the census of 2020 to see just how much of a difference there has been. I think we're probably on par to be very much just like the city of Midland, and the whole reason, not on the upper end of that, but not any worse than the city of Midland on the lower end when you look at child poverty rates and poverty rates in general. So, and the only reason that the center got built was, had it been like a normal not wealthy, but had it been a normal township like any other township, if it hadn't had this culture of poverty, if it hadn't had so many challenges, probably nobody would have funded us anything anyhow. So we were, in a way, fortunate that it was like that so that we could make the change. Otherwise, probably they just wouldn't have that type of facility.
There's so many positive things that go in there. Every time I've been in there, your staff have smiles. They're happy to be there. They love their jobs. They love serving the community. I love your preschool program. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Oh, well, it's probably the biggest program that we have. There's 126 kids in the Great Start Readiness Program funded by the state of Michigan. And that would just be 4-year-olds. And then we've got another 30 kids in a 3s program, getting ready for our 4s program. So 156 altogether. We use 5 different buildings to service that, so they're not all at West Midland Family Center. And we are getting kids, again, it's a lot of, most of it is low-income kids coming from families. Now, we're not talking about poverty level, because most of the children that are in the poverty level tend to gravitate to the Head Start program. But if you're in poverty, you certainly can come to West Midland too. We don't keep you away from it. But the GSRP program, Great Start Readiness Program, sponsored by the state, you can be up to 250% of poverty and still be qualified to be in that program. And I understand the state's talking about right now taking that to 300%, which I hope that they'll do it. If they did it, we probably would have to open up more programs because we're full at the 250% in all of our classes anyhow. So if more kids are going to be eligible, then we need to make sure that all those kids get served in some manner. So we hope you guys come through and do that.
We're not sure what all's going to happen on the budget yet.
I
Lots of moving
understand.
parts still.
So
Most
year.
of the kids served and families are in Greendale, or does that expand to surrounding townships as well?
Yeah, when I talk in terms of Greendale, the feeling behind that is we certainly are the most impactful the closer you live to the center, because there's just that much more opportunity to use the center. But no, we certainly service kids from all over certainly western Midland County, and some in Isabella County, because a couple of our preschool programs, we've got 2 classrooms in Shepherd and 1 in St. Louis too. Okay. So we are there working with those folks too, and really glad to be part of. And both of those are in school systems.
And we're coming up on summertime, obviously, a couple of months from now. What sort of summer activities, summer programs do you offer?
Yeah, a lot of, so we've got after school and child care programs during the school year. So those families are dependent on us that come. But then summer happens and you might not have been involved with the center through the school year, but now all of a sudden it's like, oh, but the kids aren't going to school, so they need to go somewhere. So that's when some families, the only time we really see them is during the summer. We run a wonderful summer program for 7 weeks, and then we also go off to a couple different camps that parents can access through West Midland, because we've been able to get scholarships at several different camps, or we run them ourselves. So, but it's largely recreation-based, but all recreation-based programs lead to, since we do it with kids and lots of kids and kids in groups, there then become difficulties with socialization, because I don't like the way you're playing with me. And it always turns into behavior modification therapy that's really going on. One of the things that I really loved with our expansion of 2000 was we added a swimming pool. And I was old school enough to think that the kids, that we'd be using it as, you straighten up or you're going to lose your pool privileges today, and that would have worked with me, and that's how it worked with my brothers. We didn't get to go to Plymouth Pool because we're acting up. But what we found was we make sure everybody, each group gets some time, 45 minutes in the pool each day of the time that they're there. And what we found was that year, the discipline problems weren't nearly what we've been dealing with before. And what we really realized at an organic level was that if kids are having fun, then they're making friends. And if you combine friends and fun together, and it's like, you get something a lot better out of it. You get people that are willing to listen. And it not only worked for the kids, but it worked for the staff too. Because if we're not having to do nearly as much behavior modification, everybody's having a better time, and then we get to have better quality staff because they're getting better quality experiences out of it.
So it sounds then like you offer programming from very young years, really across the spectrum.
Oh, not really. It starts at, I think the youngest you can be is 3.5 weeks old to enter the child care program.
Just a baby.
3.5 weeks.
Yeah, just an infant. And then the child care program itself is through age 12. And so after school programs, the preschool programs that we talked about, summer program, campership stuff, the family services things that we do. We do a lot of, so we talked some about the summer program, and it's kind of recreational and based, but we also use it that we keep the fees so low. It's like $30 you can be in it for, $35 you can be in it for the summer, but you only get that rate if you're going to be part of our parent education series. And most parents look at it as, that's still a pretty good deal. You show up one day a week for whatever stuff it is that, we get to know the families through the intake process, and they talk about the types of things that they'd like to work on, and then we set up different workshops for the types of issues that you might be dealing with, which might be something like, a child experiencing divorce, or it could be, a parent that's incarcerated, or whatever it is. So we are somebody that's experienced a loss through death. So there's a lot of a lot of people have a lot of common issues, but we don't put 150 parents in one room and say we're going to lecture you about one thing. No, you break everything down into smaller and smaller groups, and we bring in more and more other groups that have an expertise in any particular thing, and anything that needs to be covered that we can't find somebody else to come and help us teach, well then our staff take over and come up with some kind of curriculum. So the program changes throughout the year, throughout the summer, and different years depending on what issues are driving things. You know, it might be for some small subsection, it could be homelessness, which is somebody's particular issue. But there are all kinds of things. But there's a lot of ways in which to reach parents, but we reach them through kids because that's what they're most interested in. And it's said that there's no shortage of like parent education programs out there. There's typically a shortage of parents accessing them. But that's not a concern at West Midland, in part because we know it's important to serve the whole family. So when the kids are coming to our summer program, now the parents have time to concentrate on the other things that they need to do, like work during the day, and then they'll give up a night a week to come and be a part of a family thing, a family growing together. And then we've got lots of other family program nights that we have throughout the year.
I am really loving that you're listening to the parents and you're looking for needs. So some that are experienced divorce or homelessness, and that you're meeting the parents at those needs. And it's reminding me there was a cooking class that maybe went on. Am I remembering correctly?
There have been lots of different types of cooking classes, some of them through Michigan State University. The most recent one I think that we were talking about was Young Leaders United. We get a lot of support from United Way. I should always give them a plug.
Great United Way.
They are the greatest ongoing supporters that we could ever have. But there's a group called Young Leaders United, and they specifically came out and did a community service project. And they said, we'd like to get about 15 to 20 families. So, okay, we'll get 15 to 20 families. And we're going to show them how to make meals on a budget in a crock pot. And we will bring all the things in and show them how easy it is to make several different meals. And they did that. They ate that night, plus they got to take the crock pots home. And they ended up with the recipe cards and the whole thing. So that sort of thing is something that goes on all the time. We're getting lots of donations through Hidden Harvest. We get a lot of produce, and right now we're setting up a class where you can learn how to do canning. So yeah, there's all kinds of cooking things going on, and we'll continue to do those. And it's usually got to do with whomever it is that is saying they want to volunteer their time to lead. Most of them go that way, or other organizations.
Okay, so we have about 5 minutes left.
Sure.
What maybe has been the most surprising thing or the most impactful thing?
To me, it's it's that we can make a difference, because I'd always heard things like people don't want to change, and they'll always, people are in the boat that they're in because that's how they choose to live their lives. And that's not what I've seen after working in the community for 30 years. There's a lot of people want a lot of help. And yeah, there are people that just want to take, but usually you don't have enough for them to just take and take and take. They'll find some reason to not be around. But the people that really want to change, they keep making themselves available over and over and over. And it's a lot of times it's just because they didn't get much of a chance themselves, but they're making a better chance for their kids. So just from my standpoint, I think that's what's been most eye-opening on this job. And what I really love is when the kids come back, kids that have been in preschool. I was telling you before the show today, we interviewed a counselor who needs to get her practicum hours in, and she was in our preschool program. back in 1997, and here she is today. And now she's got, I think she's got 900 hours to volunteer for West Midland, and
That's great for
we
you.
couldn't be happier, right?
Well, I just want to thank you for making a positive difference in the community and in the lives of, over the years, thousands of families and thousands of children. You are just a blessing, and we appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Annette, and thank you so much for helping the state of Michigan help us help the families. John, it's good meeting you too.
You too.
Thank
and
you.
for Representative Annette Glenn's Hometown Heroes, thank you for joining us.
Very good.